All right. So let's discuss then the presidency of James Monroe. Okay, who can tell me some of his presidential accomplishments? JT.
I've changed it on.
Wait a minute.
Oh, just updated.
He died with Independence Day with like 2 other presidents.
Okay, he did die on July 4th. That's kind of a fun fact. Christian.
He's the reason Europe hasn't invaded in a long time.
Okay, very good. We're going to talk more about that. Yes, Braden.
Let's go. He was the closest president to have unanimous votes.
Very good. Okay, he was the closest president to being elected unanimously. Who ran against him in that presidential election?
Adams.
No, it was
Okay,
the Senate.
it was actually
John.
nobody.
The government.
Okay, he ran unopposed, so he's the only. That's an accomplishment. He's the only president to ever run unopposed. Listen, just because that means nobody officially said that they were running for president against him. Okay.
Wait, so then who did the other person vote for?
One person voted for John Quincy Adams, but he wasn't running for president. They just did that so that George Washington was still the only unanimously elected president. Okay, so when George Washington, who was the first president, when he ran for president, nobody voted for John Adams. Okay, John Adams was actually running against George Washington, and nobody voted for John Adams. Everybody voted for George Washington. So he's still the only president to ever be unanimously elected president, meaning nobody has voted for the other candidate. This time, no one is actually running against Monroe, but one person votes for John Quincy Adams anyway, just so that George Washington can still be the only president to win all the votes. Yep, Cameron.
Not a single person voted for the other person.
During George Washington, yeah.
Not a single person.
Not a single person.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, that says something.
yeah.
That's sad.
Not even his mom. No.
I like how you even said
But wait,
that.
Coach Fulton.
Yeah.
Has there been another president that was unanimous or
No. George Washington is the only.
no? Hold up, I didn't. Hey, let's be quiet because I didn't know if he meant like other presidents after him.
No. So George Washington's the only unanimous, and James Monroe is the only president to run unopposed. Nobody ran against him.
There's still no one that's ever had that happen.
Still nobody. That we've still always had at least 2 people trying to run for president, and probably always still will.
Unless someone just quits.
So, anyone else have an accomplishment from the presidency of James Monroe? Yep, JT.
Britain was asking for them to team up, but then he said no.
Okay. So, James Monroe has this policy that it's kind of going to influence later presidents, and his policy is that we're going to stay out of foreign affairs, right? That was the policy also of George Washington and John Adams. Remember, they wanted to stay neutral, right? Do we remember this?
Yeah.
Okay, George Washington, John Adams said we should stay neutral. So James Monroe is going to take this idea kind of to the next level. He's going to say, you know what, not only should we stay neutral, we should just stay out of European affairs, right? So he's saying if Great Britain is trying to go to war with Spain, we shouldn't take sides. We should get involved with European matters at all. And he writes this document called the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, and this document is basically saying that we should stay out of foreign affairs. Right, any foreign country, we should just kind of leave it alone. If it doesn't directly involve the United States, it's kind of like one of those. It's like mind your own business, right? We should mind our own business. Okay, but he does say that anything done to the United States is a direct threat to the United States, that we're going to take it as a direct threat. And that's what Christian was kind of saying, is how a lot of European countries have avoided conflict with a lot of European countries because of the Monroe statement. By him saying any action done towards the United States, we're going to see it as a threat. We're going to see anything done to the United States as an act of war, right? So then they're kind of going to back off and leave us alone. But a big part of Monroe's presidency is he's going to really support some up and growing countries. A lot of the South American countries, as well as Central America, like Mexico and again some South American countries, they're starting to get their independence as well. And because of Monroe, we're gonna end up supporting these guys. We're gonna say like, hey, Mexico and some of these South American countries, let's support them. And so because they're trying to get their independence, they're trying to be off on their own. So basically saying any threats to Mexico and any threats to these other countries, that's a threat. We're gonna support them. We're gonna support, Mexico and these growing, developing countries. Okay. Let's see what else. Monroe, very big in expanding the United States. Okay. Yes, Brady.
Florida.
Good. Okay. We get Florida from during Monroe's presidency. He purchases Florida from, anybody know?
Spain, $5 million.
Good. Spain for $5 million. Good. Okay. So we get the state of Florida. Also, we get 5 more states, well, 4 more, I guess, during his presidency. Okay. And one issue that kind of arises, yes, Brady?
And he was the person that made a deal about the Louisiana Purchase.
Okay. So Monroe was, so very good. So in 1803, our key date, right, we get the Louisiana Purchase under Thomas Jefferson, but Monroe was one that was sent to do some of the negotiating. So anybody pick up from the video the Missouri Compromise? Anyone hear the Missouri Compromise? JT, you know what it was?
It was
was
about
talking
how the North wanted to free slaves at 25 years old.
Okay, good. So it did have to do with slavery. During Monroe's presidency, we get the Missouri Compromise, and he is the one who ends up signing it. It was created in Congress, which Congress is made up of what?
House of Representatives and the legislative.
It is the legislative branch made up
the
of.
Senate.
There you go. Good. Okay, legislative branch made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. He's the House of Representatives and the Senate. They make this bill called the Missouri Compromise. And what the Missouri Compromise says is, so we had these new states that the United States was getting. Maine and Missouri, okay, both wanted to be states. And so we had this discussion because slavery is going on. They're saying, okay, what are we going to do about slavery? Some states are not allowing slavery, others are. What about these new states? Do we add, should they be allowed to have slaves or no? And so we come up with the Missouri Compromise, which says, okay, Missouri is going to actually be admitted as a slave state, but Maine is going to be admitted as a free state. And then the Missouri Compromise says that any state above the 3630 parallel, so there's an actual line that runs across the United States, on the map, and they said anything that is comes in above this line is going to be a free state. Okay, and then they also, all the Louisiana territory from the Louisiana Purchase, they're saying that should be admitted under free states. They should have no slavery in the Louisiana territory. Okay, so that was kind of that was just an act that was a big deal at the time because it had slavery was a big dividing issue, right? As you guys know, that some of you guys know that about U.S. history, we end up having a what over the issue?
War.
Good. We have a civil war, right? Okay, so we're starting to build up to the Civil War, but this issue is coming up already, and this is just one of the things, the Missouri Compromise, that happens along our road to the Civil War. Okay, so that covers pretty much Monroe. okay, in the presidency of Monroe. So tomorrow we are going to have our first project work day. Okay, as you guys know, we've talked about it a lot, our presidential project. So tomorrow we will be split up into groups and assigned a president. If you're an online student, you guys can pick your president. Okay, you guys can choose which one you get. If you're in person though, it's gonna be assigned to you. And if you're an in-person student, we're gonna split up into groups or partners, right? And I'll divide you guys up. I'm gonna divide you guys up and assign your president tomorrow. Okay, let's see.
Assigning partners.
You said we could pick